Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Jasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Jasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Jasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Ramana Tira Vanachari. Ramana Tira Vanachari. Ramana Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Jasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Jasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Jasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari. 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 Yamuna Tira Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Krishna is the lover of Radha. He displays many amorous pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He is the lover of the cowherd maidens of Braj, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Jasoda, and the delighter of the inhabitants of Braj. He wanders in the forest along the banks of the river Jamuna. Narayanam namaskritya Naram Sharvanarotamam Daivyam Saraswatim Vyasam Todayam Udiraya Shanvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantaha Stoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Saritsatam Nasta Preshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. What a beautiful morning. This is the biggest class I think I've ever spoken to. It's a very special day today. A lot of things are happening today. Oh, there's something there. Confirmation.
Yeah.
Oh, lost it. Hello?
Hello.
Hare Krishna.
Hello.
Okay, we're on text 30 today, Canto 2, Chapter 5. Please repeat. Vaikarikam Mano Jane Deva Vaikarika Dasa Dig Vatarka Prachito Sri Vani Mayopindra Mitra Kaha Vaikarikam Manojane Deva Vaikarika Dasa Digvatarka Prachitosi Manindro Pindra Mitrakaha Vaikarikam Manojane Deva Vaikarika Dasa Digvatarka Prachitosi Vanindro Pindra Mitraka
Vaikarikam Manojani Deva Vaikarika Dasa Digvatarka Prachitosvi Vanindro Patren Mitraka
Vaikarikan Manojane Deva Vaikarika Dasa Digvatarka Prachitosi Vanindro Pendra Mitrakaha
Vaikarikan Manojane Deva Vaikarika Dasha Digvataka Prachetosmi Vanindro Pendra Mitraka
Nindropendra Mitraka Vaikarika Manojane Deva Vaikarika Dasha Digvatarka Prachitosvi Vanindropendra Mitraka Vaikarikan Manojane Deva Vaikarika Dasha Digvatarka Prachitosvi Vanindropendra Mitraka.
Vaikarikat.
Vaikarikat.
From the mode of goodness.
From the mode of goodness.
Manaha.
Manaha.
The mind.
The mind.
Jane.
Jane.
Generated.
Generated.
Devaha.
Devaha.
Demigods.
Demigods.
Vaikarikaha.
Vaikarikaha.
In the mode of goodness.
In the mode of goodness.
Dasa.
Dasa.
10.
Dik.
The controller of directions.
The controller of directions.
Vata.
Vata.
The controller of air.
The controller of air.
Arka.
Arka.
The sun.
The sun.
Prachetaha.
Prachetaha.
Varuna. Ashti.
Ashti.
Yashvini Kumaras.
Ashwini Kumaras.
Vani.
Vani.
The fire god.
The fire god.
Indra.
Indra.
The king of heaven.
The king of heaven.
Upendra.
Upendra.
The deity in heaven.
The deity in heaven.
Mitra.
Mitra.
One of the 12 Adityas.
One of the 12 Adityas.
Kaha.
Kaha.
Prajapati Brahma.
Prajapati Brahma.
Translation. From the mode of goodness, the mind is, please repeat, from the mode of goodness, the mind is generated.
From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated.
And becomes manifest.
And becomes manifest.
As also the 10 demigods.
As also the 10 demigods.
Controlling the bodily movements.
Controlling the bodily movements.
Such demigods are known as the controller
Such demigods is known as the controller
of direction.
of directions.
Controller of air.
Controller of air.
The sun god.
The sun god.
The father of Daksha Prajapati.
The father of Daksha Prajapati.
Dashvini Kumaras.
Ashwini Kumaras.
The fire god.
The fire god.
The king of heaven.
The king of heaven.
The worshipable deity in heaven.
The worshipful deity in heaven.
The chief of the Adityas.
The chief of the Adityas.
And Brahmaji.
And Brahma.
The Prajapati.
The Prajapati.
All come to existence.
All come to existence.
I'll read that translation again. From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest, as also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha Prajapati, the Ashwini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity in heaven, the chief of the Adityas, and Brahmaji the Prajapati, all come into existence. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vikarika is the neutral stage of creation, and Tejas is the initiative of creation, while Tamas is the full display of material creation under the spell of the darkness of ignorance. Manufacture of the, quote, necessities of life in factories and workshops, excessively prominent in the age of Kali, or in the age of the machine, is the summit stage of the quality of darkness. I read that line again, it's pretty intense. Manufacture of the necessities of life in factories and workshops, excessively prominent in the age of Kali, or in the age of the machine, is the summit stage of the quality of darkness. Such manufacturing enterprises by human society are in the mode of darkness because factually there is no necessity for the commodities manufactured. Human society primarily requires food for sustenance, shelter for sleeping, defense for protection, and commodities for satisfaction of the senses. The senses are the practical signs of life, as will be explained in the next verse. Human civilization is meant for purifying the senses, and objects of sense gratification should be supplied as much as absolutely required, but not for aggravating artificial sensory needs. Food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification are all needs in material existence. Otherwise, in his pure, uncontaminated state of original life, the living entity has no such needs. The needs are artificial, and in the pure state of life, there are no such needs. As such, increasing the artificial needs, as in the standard of material civilization, or advancing the economic development of human society, is a sort of engagement in darkness without knowledge. By such engagement, human energy is spoiled, because human energy is primarily meant for purifying the senses in order to engage them in satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being the supreme possessor of spiritual senses, is the master of the senses, Hrishikesh. Hrishikesh means, Hrishika means the senses, and Isha means the master. The Lord is not the servant of the senses, or in other words, he is not directed by the dictation of the senses. But the conditioned souls, or the individual living entities, are servants of the senses. They are conducted by the direction or dictation of the senses, and therefore material civilization is a kind of engagement in sense gratification only. The standard of human civilization should be to cure the disease of sense gratification, and one can do this simply by becoming an agent for satisfying the spiritual senses of the Lord. The senses are never to be stopped in their engagements, but one should purify them by engaging them in the pure service of sense gratification of the master of the senses. This is the instruction of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted first of all to satisfy his own senses by his decision not to fight with his kinsmen and friends. The Lord Shri Krishna taught him the Bhagavad Gita just to purify Arjuna's decision for sense gratification. Therefore Arjuna agreed to satisfy the senses of the Lord, and thus he fought the battle of Kurukshetra as the Lord desired. The Vedas instruct us to get out of the existence of darkness and to go forward on the path of light. Tamasi ma jyotir gama. The path of light is therefore to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Misguided men or less intelligent men follow the path of self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord by following the path shown by Arjuna and other devotees of the Lord. On the contrary, they artificially try to stop the activities of the senses and princesses' yoga system. They artificially try to stop the activities of the senses and princesses' yoga system. Or they deny the transcendental senses of the Lord, the jnana system. The devotees, however, are above the yogis and the jnanis, because pure devotees do not deny the senses of the Lord. They want to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Only because of darkness of ignorance do the yogis and jnanis deny the senses of the Lord, and thus artificially try to control the activities of the diseased senses. In the diseased condition of the senses, There is too much engagement of the senses in increasing material needs. When one comes to see the disadvantage of aggravating the sense activities, one is called a jnani. And when one tries to stop the activities of the senses by the practice of yogic principles, he's called a yogi. But when one is fully aware of the transcendental senses of the Lord and tries to satisfy his senses, one is called a devotee of the Lord. When one tries to stop the activities of the senses by the practice of yogic principles, he's called a yogi. But when one is fully aware of the transcendental senses of the Lord, tries to satisfy his senses, meaning the Lord's senses, one is called a devotee of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord do not try to deny the senses of the Lord, nor do they artificially stop the actions of the senses. But they do voluntarily engage the purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, as is done by Arjuna, thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. But they do voluntarily engage the purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, as it was done by Arjuna, thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. Translation again. From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest, as also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha Prajapati, the Ashwini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipful deity of heaven, the chief of the Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapati, all come into existence. It's already 10 after 8, isn't it? What a beautiful purport. I noticed Prabhupada several times mentioned artificial. That's another symptom of Kali Yuga. It's an ocean of faults, but there's so much artificial that's going on in Kali Yuga. Artificial necessities, artificial lifestyle, artificial life, AI. Does anybody know what AI means?
Artificial intelligence.
Confirmation, boy. I killed it. AI, artificial, that's what I am. Artificial intelligence. Yeah, that's what Elon Musk said is the greatest threat for the future. Artificial intelligence. We already know that, though. I mean, it's going on now. Artificial intelligence. One professor said that if we were to teach what you advocate, we would all be out of jobs. If this came into prominence, we'd all be out of a job. So how can we possibly teach what you're advocating? Which, actually, it's not really true. They're already used to studying. If they just switch their studying to Prabhupada's books, they're already academia. So if they would simply surrender, take humble attitude, because simply reading one page of Bhagavatam can convince anybody that this is the most advanced. You can call it literature. Prabhupada's called it literature, but it's the most advanced knowledge that has ever existed and continues to exist. It's the golden ring. It's what we should aspire for, that the highest goal to reach for. Always to reach for that golden ring. Krishna's lotus feet. Actually, I do have a quote from someone who is really high up in human resources. I'm talking about nationally. And he had retired so he could speak freely. He was on CNN. And he said some things. He said that the higher institutions, they want to see if you can jump through those rings. They set these rings up. They want to see if you can jump through those rings. That's what college is all about, Say something's very difficult. Well, the professor, if he sees that too many people are finding that it's very difficult, but they can accomplish it. Well, he was just ready to hire. He doesn't want his classes easily passed, of course. But he said something that made their jaws drop, even on CNN. He said, he said that's true, but he also said that human resources is not there for the employees. And I know this for a fact. Human resources is not there for the employees. Human resources is there to protect the company. Because many years ago, many moons ago, I used to do security, and I can't reveal where it was at. But I found out, we were an extension of human resources. I found that out, which I didn't necessarily know, but all I was saying, pieces of puzzle, you put them together and you figure it out. We were there to protect the company, and you're given 3 warnings. First one's like oral, right? And then like written, and maybe like another written. And 3 to 4, like first orally, that's 1 warning, but then the other 2, that'd be 3 warnings actually. And then they in the file, they keep a file on everybody. So then after the 3 warnings, it's in the file in case someone comes back and tries to prosecute. Well, you were warned 3 times. And so they, because CNN, those people that were in that room, there was the interview. You can see they were quiet for a while. Their jobs just kind of dropped, just like my job dropped. I didn't know human resources was only there to protect the company. Actually, I mean, they help the employees, but like I say, it is Kali Yuga. It's the age of the cheaters and the cheated. So anyway, but we're also like that. What we do is we look out for Krishna's interests, the devotees. And who else is going to do that? Who else is going to look out for Krishna's interests? And we may think, well, Krishna's God, he doesn't need us. Well, why did he create us? Why do we exist? But Prabhu said, it's like, the fingers always existed, the body's always existed, so Krishna's like the body, we're like the finger. So basically we've always existed. I mean, Krishna says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any cease to be. So we have a purpose. There's a machine, and there may be 1,000 screws, but they all are holding something. And once that screw falls out of that machine and is laying on the ground, out there on the floor, the cold stone floor, all by itself, it feels like I'm serving no purpose now. I wish I was part of the machine. I'd have a purpose. And so, spirit soul, we don't even need to sleep. We don't need to eat. It's not like that. We can do devotional service, but if we had in our spiritual bodies, there's never any limitations in devotional service. But we hanker thinking, wow, I have my strands in the body. I won't have to worry about sleeping or eating. And then of course you're in constant ecstasy. We don't aspire for that, but I can't even imagine. But anyway, I have to go ahead and switch over now. I'm going to read about Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj. His disappearance day today. He's so glorious, I'm always so humbled, and he's such an inspiration. Okay, this sort of starts in the middle of a conversation, I guess, but it starts just like this. The next in the Parampara, after, looks like there's a word missing there. After and is an associate of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That's how it starts. A great Paramahamsa Babaji by the name of Gaura Kishora Das Babaji Maharaj. Technically, he was the disciple of Bhagavat Das Babaji Maharaj, who was a disciple of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. Anybody want me to repeat that? No? Okay. In 1897, Gaura Kishora Das Babaji Maharaj came to Mayapur, Navadvip Dham, from Sri Vrindavan Dham, where he was credited the exalted title Bhajananandi. Srila Bhaktivinoda Kedarnath Dat, that was his name. Srila Bhaktivinoda Kedarnath Dat. Seeing the transcendental behavior of Babaji Maharaj, would use him as an example of Narapeksha, indifference, as his level of renunciation was beyond belief. This Vaishnava saint's life was an example of utter humility and poverty, the true attributes of a Vaishnava. Gaurakishora never accepted any material object from anyone. For his clothing, he used the discarded loin clothes from corpses left on the bank of the Ganges. For food, he would collect rice by baking, soak it in the river water, and garnish it with salt and chili. He never asked favors from anyone and lived a fully detached life, devoid of all possessions. Very little information is available about the past life of Gaurakishora, except that he was born in a Vaishya family in the village of Bhagjana near Tipakola on the bank of the Padma. As a householder, Gaurakishora was known by the name Vamsidas, different from Vamsidas Babaji. At that time, he was engaged in some agricultural trade, and from the income took care of his wife and family honestly. After the death of his wife, Gaurakishora renounced his home and went to Vrindavan, where he was initiated into Vairagi Vaishya by Bhagavat Das Babaji, one of the foremost disciples of Jagannath Das Babaji. Srila Gaurakishora lived on Madhukari, bathing and slept beneath a tree. He would lie prostrate, offering his humble obeisances to the residents of Raj, considering them as embodiments of Lord Krishna. He even offered his obeisances to the flowers, trees, and land around him. He spent about 30 years at Vraj Mandala, serving the deities there. Afterwards, perhaps by the direction of the Supreme Lord, he left for Navadvip. During his stay at Navadvip, Gaurakishora underwent various transformations of spiritual moods. Sometimes he danced on the bank of the Ganges chanting, "Gaura, Gaura," while at other times he would lie on the ground in an unconscious state. He joyfully moved throughout the groves located on the bank of the Ganges, considering them sites of divine sports of Sri Sri Radha Govinda. His only clothing was a strip of cloth around his waist, and often went totally naked. He chanted japa on beads, or sometimes knotted a cloth and used that as a substitute for japa beads. Occasionally he went to Govardhana Dweep to listen to Bhaktivinoda Thakur recite Srimad Bhagavatam. Babaji Maharaj would often visit Bhaktivinoda. During his last days in retirement, absorbed in Krishna Katha, he would hear Srimad Bhagavatam at Bhaktivinoda's house, and they would discuss together. Though Babaji Maharaj could neither read nor write, he was regarded as vastly learned and self-realized. His only possessions were the tulsi beads around his neck and the japa mala he kept in his hand. Sometimes he wore no tulsi mala on his neck and would chant on knotted cloth as beads. Such was his renunciation. Sometimes he would live under an old, broken, overturned boat, and other times he would scatter fish bones around a place he occasionally used as his bhajan kutir to make materialists think he was a fish eater, and thus they would not disturb him. But by his pure bhajan, he purified the three worlds. He was the guru of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, the founder of the Chaitanya Mats and Gaudiya Mats. In 1898, when Bhaktivinoda's son, who was now residing in Godru Madhuri in Navadvip Dham, first came in contact with the person who was to be his spiritual master, Gaurakishordas Babaji Maharaj, the crest jewel of Avadutas, was wearing a tiger skin hat and carrying a basket with puja paraphernalia inside He offered the boy 4 or 5 pieces of rope for chanting his rounds on, and a tilak stamp for marking the body with Hare Krishna carved on it. Bhaktivinoda later told his son, quote, "You must take initiation from Babaji Maharaj and don't return to this house if you don't." Gorkishore Das Babaji used to walk across a bridge at the same time daily. So on one occasion, Bhaktivinoda's son, Siddhanta Saraswati, blocked his path and in all humility said, "If you don't give me initiation, then I will finish my life by throwing this useless body off this bridge." Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj didn't want any disciples. He himself had taken shiksha from Bhaktivinoda, and this was Bhaktivinoda's dear son. Siddhanta Saraswati told him how his father had instructed him to become Babaji Maharaj's disciple or not return home. So in 1900, Babaji Maharaj gave him the name Varsha Bharanavi Devi Daita Das. He then gave his new initiate a tiger skin hat and basket that had been given to Gorkishore by his spiritual master Bhagavat Das Babaji, which he in turn had received from Jagannath Das Babaji. In 1908, Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj lost his external eyesight, so he then stopped traveling and just chanted and performed worship of Krishna. Being aloof from external consciousness, sometimes he would not dress his body. Instead, he would sit in his bhajan kutir, internally absorbed in Krishna's pastimes, and in a very deep voice he heard calling, and in a very deep voice be heard calling the names of the gopis of Vrindavan. Once Srila Varsha Bhanavi Devi Daitya Das Siddhanta Saraswati offered to take Babaji Maharaj to Calcutta to see an eye specialist, but he refused, saying, "Never! I will never go to the material world." His disciple protested, "But in Calcutta I could serve you nicely. You wouldn't have to undergo any inconvenience." But Babaji Maharaj was adamant, declaring, "I will never accept this service. Better I throw myself in the Saraswati, Jalangi, and drown." Once Babaji Maharaj turned up at the Yoga Pita, Lord Chaitanya's birthplace, at 2 in the morning. Amazed, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati inquired how he had got there in pitch black of night. Babaji Maharaj replied, "Someone brought me here." "Who could have brought you such a distance at this time?" inquired Bhaktivedanta. Finally his mind concluded, "It must have been Krishna who personally brought you here, or else how did you cross the Ganges? How did you find your way across the dark fields?" But Babaji Maharaj would not answer more than, "One person brought me across the river, that's all." One day, Srila Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj wrapped his body and 2 feet with a cloth. Sitting covered like this, he said, "Many persons, after being informed by others, come here to collect the dust from my feet. I tell them I am not a Vaishnava. If you go to the vicinity where there are Vaishnavas with their feet pretentiously decorated and extended to touch, you can have unlimited dust. How can I bless you? I don't have barfi, or sandesh, or rasgula, or even sweet words. How can I bless you?" Nowadays, people are interested in spiritual masters, can give these things. Wealth, good wife, sweet words. These cheating things are now taken as anukula, favorable. End quote. Every virtuous person looked forward to rendering service to Srila Gorkishore. However, he rarely allowed anyone the chance to serve him. Once, Manindra Chandra Nandi, the Maharaj of Keshambarja, sent a distinguished messenger to escort Gorkishore to the former's palace. Gorkishore, however, did not accept the Maharaj's invitation, saying that if he visited the palace, he may feel tempted by the wealth of the Maharaj, which may result in a strained relationship between the two. Hence, Gorkishore suggested that instead of him visiting the palace, let the Maharaj free himself completely from the shackles of wealth by donating everything he owned to his relatives, and then come to live with Gorkishore in a specially prepared shed where both of them could practice Hari Bhajan in peace. End quote. Srila Gorkishore was very selective about accepting invitations for food. He believed that partaking of food here and there could adversely affect the spiritual life of a devotee. Once a devotee named Haran Babu partook of prasad offered at the festival held at Bhajan Kutir at Navadvip. For this, Gorkishore stopped communicating with Haran for 3 days. On the 4th day, Gorkishore explained that the prasad of the above festival had been financed by a woman of questionable profession, a pamskari, one who is moved by other men. Once on the eve of Sanatana Goswami's disappearance day, Gorkishore decided to celebrate the occasion. The devotee attending him asked who would provide them with the materials for the celebration. Srila Gorkishore replied, quote, "Remember not to speak to anyone about it. We shall miss a meal and continue around the clock chanting the holy name. This could be the typical festival for those of us who have taken the vow of poverty." End quote. Narendra Kumar Sen, a resident of Agartala, Tripuri, once approached Gorkishore to learn about Guru Pranali, or Siddha Pranali. Gorkishore told him, "The Supreme Lord cannot be realized through worldly knowledge. Only through the chanting of the holy name can the true nature of the Lord be revealed. As the Lord is revealed from the letters comprising the Dham, the devotee gradually begins to understand his own nature and becomes acquainted with Seva." Once a physician told Gorkishore that he intended to move to Navadvip and take up charitable practices. Gorkishore advised the physician that if he truly desired to live in Navadvip, then he should give up the plan for a charitable practice because it would only encourage materially minded people to save money. Those who sincerely practice Hari Bhajan should never get distracted by the chains of welfare activities. A young seeker wearing only a kolpan once stayed with Gorkishore for some days. Later he arranged through the agency of an employee of a female estate owner to obtain 5 kakas of land as a donation from the woman. When Gorkishore heard about this, he was extremely annoyed. Quote, Navadvip Dham is beyond this material world. How can a worldly landowner dare to own land here and even think he can donate 5 kakas out of it? A mere grain of sand of the transcendental Navadvip is more valuable than all the precious gems in this world put together. Moreover, how advanced could this young kalpan-clad devotee be if he dares to collect so much land in lieu of his bhajan merit? Once a devotee offered some sweets to Lord Gauranga and then took the offering to Gorkishore, urging him to partake of it. Gorkishore told the devotee, quote, "Those who are non-vegetarian, those who commit adultery, or offer food to Lord Gauranga with a particular motive, their offerings never reach Lord Gauranga and are never sanctified as prasad." Srila Gorkishore regularly begged for rice, after which he would cook the rice, offer it, and partake of the prasad. He never touched any foodstuff offered by someone else. Once during monsoon, Gorkishore stayed in the rest house at Palia Navadvip. Some prasad was left in a vessel for him to respect later. Meanwhile, a snake passed by the vessel and a woman there happened to notice it. When Gorkishore sat down to take prasad, the woman appeared there and informed him about the snake. Gorkishore, however, firmly stated that he would not touch prasad until the woman left. After the woman left, Gorkishore said, "Look how Maya works. Taking the form of compassion, Maya attempts to get deep into her target slowly. Maya can assume countless forms. She always prevents a mortal being from practicing Hari Bhajan." Giribahu and his wife once ardently requested Gorkishore to stay in their house in Navadvip. Gorkishore was moved by their sincere devotion and finally agreed to oblige them on the condition that he would live only in their toilet room, where he would perform Hari Bhajan. Giribahu tried to persuade him to change his mind, but Gorkishore remained firm. Giribahu reluctantly arranged to have the toilet thoroughly cleaned, and Gorkishore used it for Hari Bhajan. A realized soul can practice Hari Bhajan anywhere in an unconcerned manner, and wherever he resides, that place becomes Vaikuntha. Srila Gorkishore was a highly spiritually advanced soul. He never allowed deceitful practices or any discussion which was not within the purview of the holy books. One day, when a devotee questioned Gorkishore about a well-known reciter of, quote, Srimad Bhagavatam, who was in the habit of chanting, "Gora, Gora," Gorkishore remarked, "He doesn't say Gora, Gora. Rather, he means to say is, more, more." Parentheses, money, money. Those who recite Srimad Bhagavatam for payment are not entitled to chant the name of the Supreme Lord. Srila Gorkishore never delivered discourses openly, yet his spotless character drew everyone to him. Upon meeting Gorkishore, even a staunch materialist would become inclined to take up Hari Bhajan. On the 22nd of June 1914, Bhaktivinoda Thakur passed from this world into his samadhi, deep meditation on Lord Krishna, in Bhakti Bhavan. And then on November 17th, 1915, Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, on the auspicious Uttana Ekadasi, also left this world. His body was placed into a samadhi tomb, but 16 years later, due to flooding, the samadhi had to be moved. There was a clamor of local Babajis trying to claim the samadhi, but the bold Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Varsha Bhanavi Devi Daitadas, told everyone frankly, "I am the only disciple of Paramahamsa Babaji Maharaj. Even though I have not accepted sannyas, I am a celibate brahmachari, and by the grace of Babaji Maharaj, I am not secretly addicted to abnormal habits, abominable habits, or involved in fornication as many monkey-like people are. If there is someone amongst the people here present who is a renunciant of stainless character, then he can have Babaji Maharaj's samadhi. We have no objection to that. He who, within the last year, or the last 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, or at least within the last 3 days, has not had illicit connection with the woman, will be able to touch his spiritual blissful body. If anyone else touches, it will be completely ruined." Hearing these words, the inspector of police, who had come to judge for a fair and honest decision, said, quote, "How will evidence be had for this?" Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati replied, "I have faith in their word." At this, one by one, all the bogus Babajis slipped away without a word. I just want to read one thing that's real appropriate. It's real short. Something that Prabhupada said. He said this in a letter on July 8th, 1972. And this comes with a picture of Srila Prabhupada looking out in Vrindavan, looking out at the samadhi. That famous picture, look at that little window, take prasad. Vaishnava means one who is able to sit down anywhere. under any conditions and be happy. He wants only a place to lay down a little prasadam, and if there is a little service he can do, quote, gladly let me do it for Krishna, unquote. That's all. Vaishnava means one who is able to sit down anywhere under any conditions and be happy. He wants only a place to lay down a little prasadam, and if there is a little service he can do, gladly let me do it for Krishna. That's all. And actually, it comes with the title above, indifferent to material acquisition. And this is the example they gave, Srila Prabhupada said. Anybody want to have any comments?
I wasn't here for the whole class, sorry, I was picking flowers, but it said that Gorkishore Dasbaji Maharaj, maybe you talked about this, he was the personification of renunciation. He would sleep under an overturned boat on the Ganges. He would just soak some rice in some gangajal and eat that. Even I heard one time that he ate out of a skull to remind himself that about the temporary nature of this material world. Such a great devotee. And then it's so amazing that his disciple was the foremost scholar of the day, but it said that Gorkishore Dasbaji Maharaj was illiterate, although of course he knew perfectly the Siddhanta, the conclusion of the scriptures. But you know, these relationships and the intricacies of their loving exchanges is just like, you know, beyond my comprehension, for sure. Gorkishore Dasbaji Maharaj.
Well, I have one question. Is it my imagination, or is our farm growing? Are we having new additions, people coming?
No imagination.
It's not my imagination. It seems like, you know, it's nice. It's so nice. Seeing it expanding, you know.
Krishna is always expanding.
Yeah, ever expanding. We can't doubt it at all. We should expect, probably say we should expect Krishna's mercy. Always expect Krishna's mercy. And I tell people that we have, come and see our bathrooms. They're resort quality. Brand new bathrooms. Brand new, beautiful, brand new playground for the kids, you know. And I say, even if you're in the hover around, you know, we got nice sidewalks. You can ride around in your little hover around. Or if you know somebody who's kind of limited, you know. And that's one good thing about this place. It is really level for those who are challenged, older folks. Anybody else have a question or comment? Thank you for allowing me to serve you. All glories to Srila Gorkishore Dasbaji Maharaj, entire parampara. Simple devotees, Shri Shri Gauranitai, Shri Shri Bhadravata Kanta, Gauri Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gauri Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Thank you very much.